this actually is a good way to set this up. Can I get a volunteer to read the first paragraph of the paper on table sorting and competition? Give it paper.
Oh, yeah.
Can you read the first paragraph of the paper on table sorting? Nice big loud voice.
Which page?
Just the first paragraph of page 3 to 11. So it's like the very first page. Okay.
Over 50 years ago, Charles Tewitt hypothesized that decentralized provision of public services, such as public schools, through local governments would result in efficient levels of such services. His key insight was that residential mobility of households might provide a disciplining force. Now it is to typical market forces under perfect competition and thriving these markets. Local communities are viewed as analogous to competing shopping malls that offer different services, competing with one another while at the same time appealing to somewhat different clienteles. By considering the mix of local taxes and public services, much as they consider the mix of services and goods that holds households in effect vote with their feet, choosing communities much like malls that best meet their needs while making it difficult for local governments, much like mall owners, to engage in excessive rent seeking.
Okay, good, perfect. So here are like the key ideas, right? So education is a public good. I put this in quotes because it's really an pure public good. Right? And by that, what we mean is that that's not rival. Well, this is education actually is rival, right? And non-excludable. So this requires so basically everyone has access or can't be denied access and then it's non-rival in the sense that use by one does not diminish use by another. As certain, because education actually, this is not true for education, right? But when we think about public goods, we want to think about goods that should be provided at a public level as opposed to being provided at an individual level, right? So national defense is an example of a pure public good in this context. But the broad idea here is that education is a pure public good. And so we want to think about how do we provide a pure public goods like education or like trash pickup or something like that, right? And one of the challenges is that we can give local governments authority to raise the revenue to provide these. We can need to fund it. But then what can happen is if they have this tax raising revenue, there's the potential for inefficiencies. So how do we solve these inefficiencies? So you give local governments authority to raise revenue to provide public good. But how do you mitigate inefficiencies? For example, providing too much school or too little. And taxing much or too little to provide it, given the taste of households. And the answer is competition. Right? And so here's the idea. If you assume the following, one, that there are many schools, many towns rather, many towns, many people, and each town sets its own taxes and corresponding level of public goods. And you assume that there's perfect information by households of the taxes and goods bundles. And so basically what's happening is each town is setting its own taxes, and they're saying, so you may have some towns that have like really high taxes and a lot of education, some towns that have low taxes and low amounts of education. And then also, you're going to assume that there's perfect mobility. So if, for example, like your idealized town is like a town in Alaska, because they're offering super low taxes and like not a lot of education, it's costless for you to move there. This, of course, this assumption is going to be wrong, right? This is going to be one of the problems with the model. Perfect mobility. So this is like, it's costless. You have a uniform lump sum tax. What that means is everybody pays $10,000 or everybody pays $5,000. Because what happens is if you don't have a lump sum tax, then you have the potential for like a free rider type of a system, right? Where everybody's reaping the same benefit from the public good, but they're giving in different amounts of money to the public good. So you have a uniform sum taxes. So under these assumptions, and so this is a result of the Tebow model, you're going to get perfect sorting of people across localities, where the folks who really like high taxes and a lot of services are going to go there. The folks who like low taxes and low services are going to go there. And so you don't need a centralized government to provide the public goods, but you actually have like a market for public goods. So the result is you have a decentralized market for public goods. That is efficient. That is people who prefer low taxes and low level when you go to the market, you can get Gucci or Fucci, right? Because you have like these stores that are available. So the same idea is happening here. So if you can create a market for public goods, then you can have the efficient sorting of people across these locations. But it's going to rely on these sets of assumptions here, any number of which you can think of as being potentially wrong. But just conceptually, the idea is going to be, the way to think about this is even though like the implementation, even though these assumptions are violated, what this gets you to think of is like, okay, it is a public good, and so the temptation might be to think that it needs to be provided in a centralized way. But what that's ignoring is the fact that people have different preferences over how much of the public good they want to consume. And so having a decentralized market could actually get us a long way towards providing the public good still, but providing it in the levels and the amounts that people want. Right? And so that's kind of like the key takeaway from here. Now, what are some of the problems with this, right? So moving is typically not costless. We typically don't have lump sum taxes. Information is not perfectly mobile. Moreover, you can get a situation in which the public good can actually be underprovided in certain locations too. So if, for example, let's say person X is tied to this neighborhood because his or her grandmother is sick and they have to stay there, right? But this is a neighborhood where the predominant view of people there is that they should not have like good schools. Like one of the externalities is going to be like kids that have like a higher cost of moving from that neighborhood are going to be underprovided with the public good. And so that's one potential like limitation of this. The other thing that we saw with the TP model, remember when I showed you those graphs of the boundary just continuity design, where on one side of the boundary you had households that were able to go to like the good school district, and on the other side, households that could only go to the bad school district. And what we saw was that there was a difference of prices across those two types of, across that boundary. And so what's going to happen in this model too is that the level of public goods is going to be capitalized in the price of the housing. And what we mean by that is if you're in a locality that's providing a lot of public goods, the taxes are going to be a lot higher and the price of housing is going to be a lot higher too. Because in part what you're paying for when you sort into that neighborhood is going to be the high level of public goods. So Chris found this really interesting example about Clemson. Do you mind sharing it with the class?
Yeah, if I can word it correctly. So if you live in Anderson County, you pay Anderson County taxes, but you're close enough to the Clemson School District. If you want your child to go to the Clemson School District, all you have to do is pay Clemson property taxes, which are considerably higher. So, not relevant.
Exactly. And so the issues with this are the following, which we talked about. One is moving is not costless. Number two is information is not perfect. So what happens for people who don't know that there's a town a couple of blocks down the road that's like super cheap and that's good for them? The people with less information are going to benefit less from this system, right? Lump sum taxes don't really exist. Because what happens when we charge more often than $10,000 if you charge me $10,000, right? Huge difference. The other thing too is there's certain economies of scale with centralization, right? And what this means is, for example, imagine if each of these local neighborhoods have to have their own tax assessor's office, right? And then the final thing is like, is this going to be equitable, right? Is it going to be equitable to impose on someone that may not be able to move the fact that taxes are going to be low and they're not going to get as good an education, right? And so there's some challenges with this model, but the conceptual point to take away from this, and I'll end with this, is that there is a role for the market to play in terms of like providing people with options so that they can sort themselves into the right slots. But when you have these kinds of market frictions here, this is not going to perfectly solve the problem. In some cases, it can actually exacerbate the problem. So I'll stop there. You guys have a great Thanksgiving. Finish up your projects, and then Shannon's going to create a book for you to upload them. So she's going to do about that shortly. Keep in mind the things that I talked about here. Make sure that you write a consistent and a clear story. And if you do need a little bit extra time, let me know. And that, for me, it's more important that you do a good job than just for you to hand it in and just provide that. Take care. Have a great Thanksgiving, guys. And if you want, you can take extra copies of this for your colleagues who
Sure.
Yeah, so all of these are online. So I can send them.
See